Almost everyone agrees the Chargers had a good draft, but what about the guys they signed after the draft? In the last video, we talked about all of the undrafted free agents on defense. Now it's time to talk about the playmakers, the pass protectors, the dogs on offense. This is the hidden talent on the Chargers roster, starting with Johari Branch, the center from Maryland. Johari was a 3-star high school recruit out of Chicago and initially committed to Eastern Illinois, where he didn't allow a single hurry or hit in his limited time playing there at left guard. He transferred to Maryland as a sophomore, where he would go on to play all along the interior, with most of his time being played at center this past season. He has a strong initial punch and a sticky grip. Once he gets a good hold of you, it's like flex tape. He is not coming off. He needs to work on his footwork because sometimes he gets sloppy and slow, or he'll just stop moving his feet altogether. He didn't have a good RAS score, but he's got good size and he's able to climb to the second level, but hasn't shown the ability to do it consistently yet. I see the potential in Johari, and every team in the NFL wants depth along the offensive line, so he could easily earn himself a roster spot not only on the Chargers, but on any team in the league. Although his RAS score was bad, we know that he can at least do a cartwheel. Check this out. Next up is Terrell Bynum, wide receiver from USC. Terrell was a 4-star wide receiver slash cornerback prospect out of the famous St. John Bosco High School in California. He played 3 seasons at Washington before transferring to play for Lincoln Riley at USC. He didn't produce much at either school, as his stats for his entire career are 81 catches, just under 1,100 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He was behind a really crowded wide receiver room at USC, so it was tough for him to get targets, but he has shown flashes with his limited production. He's got a fluid release, gets into a full sprint quickly, and he can stick at the top of a route and pivot well, and he's able to adjust to poorly thrown balls. Think of him as the undrafted free agent version of Jackson Smith-Njigba. Problem is, he didn't have a great RAS score, and he's not going to beat anybody with athleticism, so he needs to be able to develop really good route running skills in the NFL in order to stick around. The good news is, he's got one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Keenan Allen to learn exactly how to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if Terrell Bynum is one of those guys that's more productive in the NFL than college. This Chargers wide receiver room, though, it's a bit crowded at the moment, but if we can get him on the practice squad, he could have a bright future. Now next up, Elijah Dotson, the running back from Northern Colorado. Elijah was an unranked high school running back out of Antelope, California. He played 4 seasons at Sacramento State and then transferred to Northern Colorado for his final season. He cuts well, has good field vision, and he is quick to be decisive when he sees a lane open up, which should serve him well in the NFL, because if you hesitate as a running back in the backfield, that is like the worst thing that you can do at the next level. He's got great hands, was a very productive running back in college, not afraid of contact, and even though he's not a great athlete, as you can see, this is his RAS score, he has a good blend of speed, power, and explosiveness, and that correlates to his testing because his best grades are the 40 time, the bench press, and the broad jump. Now he's only 5'9", didn't play against the best competition, but neither did Austin Eckler when he was coming out of Western State. He reminds me though of James White, the longtime Patriots running back, because of his dual threat ability. He tends to run a bit too upright, just like James White did, and he doesn't break many tackles, and he's not as good of an athlete as Eckler was, but the Chargers are looking for somebody to come in and take snaps in the backfield, and Elijah can do that. Next up, Mikel Ezeike, the tight end from UCLA. Mikel was a 4-star wide receiver slash tight end high school prospect out of California. He gained 30 pounds to play tight end at UCLA, and he only caught 35 balls for 407 yards and 7 touchdowns in his career, with 3 of those touchdowns coming against USC this past season. UCLA used him a lot in motion to block on the weak side, the strong side, or even just leak out and run a route. He doesn't break in and out of his routes well, takes time to build up his speed, but he does have pretty good hands. I don't see him drop many balls. He's not going to break a ton of tackles, but he gives high effort on every play. He's a capable blocker, but just needs to learn not to leave his feet when he's blocking in motion because he tends to lunge at guys sometimes. This is another one of those prospects that I could see have a better NFL career than college career, and the Chargers need help at tight end, and they didn't draft one. So Michael Ezeike could absolutely make a name for himself this camp. Next up, another running back, Tyler Hoosman from North Dakota. Now, Tyler wasn't a highly rated high school prospect out of Plainfield, Illinois, and committed to Northern Iowa, where he played 34 games and only had 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. He transferred to North Dakota this past season, and in 10 games, he had 882 yards and 11 touchdowns, while also having his best receiving year as well. He's a hard-nosed, tough running back that craves contact and does well running in between the tackles. He has great patience and vision for when a hole opens up, and he isn't afraid to trust what he sees. He compares himself to Ezekiel Elliott, and I think that's a fair comparison in terms of his running style and his strengths. I also see a bit of James Robinson in him, and he had a great RAS score with an elite broad jump, which shows on tape because he does have explosiveness to his game. He does all the little things well, which tells me he is a hard worker and he is easily coachable and willing to learn. He also said that LT was his favorite running back and he would mimic his moves during games as a kid, which I'm sure Chargers fans are going to love to hear. I know I love to hear that. I would be willing to bet that Tyler Hoosman does all that he can to make this roster, and he may force the Chargers to cut a guy like Joshua Kelly in a surprise move. We'll see what happens in camp, but man, this guy is a hard worker and he's got a lot of talent. I'm feeling good about Tyler Hoosman and his chances at making this roster. Next up, Nicolas Melsop, the tackle from Delta State. Now, Nick was not a high-rated prospect out of Ohio where he played tackle and defensive end. He committed to Delta State and was All-Gulf South Conference second team in 2021. He is 6'6" and 332 pounds. This guy's an absolute unit, and he has an explosive first punch that knocks guys back consistently. I've seen him get to the second level quickly, and on tape he looks to be a great athlete, especially for his size. His RAS score grades out pretty well too. The only thing that I've seen from the limited tape that we have on him is his footwork needs to be better. He's slow to get in his pass set, which would cause him trouble as a tackle in the NFL. Could play guard, but he is so tall that defensive linemen would just have much better leverage over him. So I think his best place is still tackle in the NFL. He flashed on tape more than I expected, and we're always looking for more protection for Justin Herbert, right? Now, last but definitely not least, Ontaria Pokey Wilson, the wide receiver from Florida State. Pokey was a 3-star wide receiver slash cornerback high school recruit out of Georgia, and he picked Florida State over Ole Miss and the University of Georgia. He started at FSU as a cornerback and then moved to wide receiver pretty early on. He got better every season, finished his career with 108 catches, 1,521 yards, and 12 tutties. He is 6 foot, 180 pounds, and he had a terrible RAS score. He's quicker than fast, has great hands, and is a sneaky good route runner that will improvise with the quarterback if the play goes haywire. He plays with confidence and waits until the last second to reach his hands out for the ball so that the DB can't anticipate the pass and break it up, which tells me he is smart and coachable. He has made tons of one-handed catches. He constantly has bailed out the Florida State quarterback, and if he had top-end speed and more production, he would be a day 2 pick. He reminds me of Mecole Hardman, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him on a final roster, but would it be for the Chargers? It's a crowded wide receiver room, like I said, but it's totally possible that he makes his way onto this team because he has flashed some really good hands and some really good qualities as a wide receiver. So those are all the offensive free agents, and just like in this video right here where I went over the defensive free agents, there is a lot of talent on this roster, and I cannot wait to see these guys in preseason and see what decisions the Chargers are going to make. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't seen the defensive free agents, you can go ahead and check this video out right here. Make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.